Hello and welcome to GameGuru live broadcast, our end of month video roundup of all the things that have happened in the last 30 days. Bug fixings, small feature additions, maybe some releases or announcements. That's the kind of thing. And I get to demonstrate it, but that's not the bulk of our live broadcast. The bulk of it is a Q&A. Where you get to ask your questions live and I get to try and answer them. So that's the basic general format. And also, if anyone has some projects that they're working on and would like a little mention, then obviously you can just email me and I'll crowbar it into the show. No one's actually asked me to talk about anything this month, so everything I show you today is all my stuff, all the stuff that I've been working on and I'd like to share. And then we'll move on to Q&A. You can ask questions about what you've seen, or you can ask questions generally about GameGuru, or questions about anything to do with games development. It's all good. Before we get stuck in, just want to make sure that I can see the chat. Do like to glance off screen. You can't see it, but I can. Just to make sure that everyone is around and I'm not speaking to myself in a big empty room. And not a lot of people chatting. I think they're just waiting for the thing to start. And congratulations to everybody who remembered. The live broadcast is the last Wednesday of each month. It wasn't pre-announced. You just have to know and to show up at the right time and figure out what 7 p.m. GMT is on the world time clock. So I'm beginning to waffle now, so let's get stuck into the things I'd like to show. A couple of different things, a lot of them related to the latest GameGuru Max update. What update is that, I hear you ask? Well, my plan was to release it before the broadcast, but then you might not show up for the broadcast. So the plan now is, after the broadcast, then I'll release the GameGuru Max update. That's the retail one. That's the public update that everybody gets. It comes with an announcement with a complete list of all the changelog, and then I've highlighted some of the fancier ones, and a subset of those highlighted features and bug fixes are going to be included today, and I can demonstrate a few of them. The great news, generally speaking, is 30 days ago it was about 84 bugs, and right now it's about 28 bugs. So we're very, very close to that zero count. And as you'll see later on in the announcement, our goal is to get to practically zero bugs reported. That's not to say that the software has no more bugs in it. It's just that there won't be any bug reports, say, from the last 12 months, because they've all been attended to. A couple of those bugs have been reclassified as performance and optimization work. So a little bit of a cheat there. But I think it made sense to fix things that were definitely broken and then turn our attention to things that could just be a little bit better or a little bit faster. So a couple of things. Anyone who's been kind of eagle-eyed on Discord will notice that we snuck out a couple of 6 DLCs, in fact. And I just wanted to show you that just as a quick look. There was also some conversations about on Discord about the entire set of DLCs aren't useful because nobody wants to do low poly. Well, I'm afraid that's really down to the individual and the eye of the beholder. And another comment was it's completely ridiculous to provide any low poly unless you can provide low poly terrain and low poly trees and low poly grass. Well, it's one of the things I just wanted to show you: low poly terrain, low poly trees, low poly grass. But that isn't what I wanted to show you. What I wanted to show you is if I just run this now. Oh yeah, before I actually get too far into talking about progress and stuff, you'll find this particular set of DLCs is currently on a discount, on a bundle deal on Fanatical. So go on to Google's, type it Fanatical and GameGuru Max, you'll find the bundle, really good price. So if you are interested in any way, you probably won't get this kind of discount again. It's a massive launch offer, and if you in the future you're thinking of doing low poly, or in the future you're thinking of doing some VR gaming that runs on a lot of low-end systems, this is the kind of assets for you. So this is a level I knocked up. The actual official levels are actually part of the DLC. This is just something I cobbled together. And as you can see, we've got low poly weapons, you've got low poly characters, a low poly skeleton with a sword, and you generally get the idea. You've got lots of low poly terrain, thrones, workbenches, pickups, scrolls, etc., etc. Now, let me just come out of here for a second. I just want to make it clear that all of these DLCs, they're not booster packs and they're not game kits. They're what we classify as asset packs and mini kits. Those are the smallest of the DLCs that we do, and thus the lowest priced DLCs that we do. The reason is booster packs are generally larger with a variety of different kinds of stuff in, and game kits are the top end. Game kits are the one that has literally everything. Characters, weapons, scenery, moving logic, all the stuff that you need in one place to make a game. These aren't those. Asset packs are literally a group of one kind of thing. Mini kits is a smaller group of one kind of thing, just to kind of telegraph what you're going to be getting. However, we felt it was inappropriate to give you scenery and weapons with nothing to attack. And we had been working in the background on custom character creator parts, and we already had an assemblage of body parts. So we put a bit of extra effort in to get those body parts into a format that works well with GameGuru Max, and we knocked out 3 characters for you: a skeleton, a knight, and a soldier, just so you can have something to attack. But the plan is to finish up that work and to seed a couple of characters into some of those asset packs, because each asset pack is themed. So there's a Night Bastion DLC, there's an Arctic Ruins DLC, and a Mechanist DLC, and they all have different themes and thus different characters. So we're going to seed some characters in there. But the great news, and I'll show you this now, is that up until now, character creator was a bit of a fixed thing. You could do adult and adult. Let me just go into it first. Adult male and adult female, zombie male and zombie female. But now it actually dynamically scans the parts folder, and if it finds all the category, it adds it to this menu. So now, when you select low poly, this is something that we've used internally, you can now have your own sort of body parts. And of course, low poly, it's a style, so we've chosen a folder called low poly, and we've sprinkled in all the character parts. Now, this isn't finished. As I said, we wanted to get you something out like today, this week, so you could fight something. But we do expect to formalize this with a few more body parts. As you can see, it's clear that the thumbnails haven't been updated, but I just wanted to show you that it works. So you've got the different heads. So there's the soldier one, there's the skeleton head. Go to bodies, you've got all the different bodies, but I'm going to choose the knight armor and legs. You've got the knight legs, you've got the soldier legs, and then you've got the skeleton legs. So which is the skeleton, and then of course you've got the different footwear. And I'm going to give it the knight footwear, and I'm pretty happy with that. So we'll give it a name. So we'll call it Skellbob. Save character, and as you can see, it creates the character for you. You can drop it in. Let's zoom in like that. Menacing looking guy. Creates the thumbnail for you. You can select it from your library, and you drop him into your level. You've just created your own character. And as you can imagine, the more body parts you have, heads, body, legs, and things like that, then the more combinations of characters you can create. And one great thing about low poly assets, it doesn't take as long to make. So we've not planned it thoroughly yet, but we don't see any reason why a dedicated artist couldn't knock out quite a lot of low poly body parts, and then your character choices would be, well, quite large. Let me show you how to finish this off, because it doesn't exactly come straight out of the box. Character creator will create a character in patrol mode. You want him to attack you. And second, you want to give the character a low poly weapon. And if you get the whole set of low poly DLCs, one of those DLCs, his melee knight weapons. As you can see down here, low poly icicle hammer, old blade, pronged crystal sword. Well, you get the idea. Let me just check. Chaos blade will do. And then now when we run, and I'm not planning to attack, but I can certainly show you the character attacking me. Around here, and there he is. Our custom created low poly, half skeleton, half knight with a chaos blade. And yeah, you get the idea. So the reason I wanted to mention it today is that's been a long time in coming. The idea that if you're an artist and you know how to make body parts and you follow our rig, then you can create those body parts, put them into a new custom folder in the character creator, and then after that it shows the animations that Max already provides, and it shows all the logic that Max already provides. For example, the character attack and the melee attack. And the zombie attack, come to that. And so expect to see more character types as those styles get added. Not by us, we're very busy with fixing bugs and adding features, but by third-party artists who feel that they want to create a different character style and create lots of body parts. And it's always the preferred option to use the character creator, because you know it's going to be a Max compatible character out the box, but it also means you can go in, if you don't quite like the head or the hat or the footwear or whatever, you can go into the character creator and make a small tweak, say about your new character, and boom, you got the character that you want for your particular game idea. So that's why we always encourage, rather than just knock out 50 arbitrary characters in a pack, we want to sort of use the character creator to create those choices when it comes to pre-created characters and characters you can customize. So I'm pretty happy about that. Finally out the door, and all we need now is body parts to fill out that particular feature. So the next thing I wanted to quickly talk about is performance. We've already started work on performance. In fact, we broke the lure system at one point in pursuit of performance, and I apologise for those who were caught in the middle of it. But those have been mostly resolved now. We're back to where we was, but now all of the what we would have called the external message-based lure commands, they're all gone. 260 of those message commands are now internal commands, and they are ever so slightly faster. And when you have a lot of scripts all using those commands, those little performance gains add up. But I want to show you two performance metrics that is next on our radar, just so you know it's not just about bug fixing. We're very conscious of the fact that performance has to be better before you can make a game and put it on Steam and not have too many complaints. And there's some silly... right away, if you've run the latest EXP build, in fact the public build, which goes out a little bit later, every time you run a test level, right at the beginning you see a little bit of a stutter. We don't like that. We want it to be smooth when you go into the test level. And that's one thing, but that's not one of the metrics I want to talk about. If I just get my arrow, I want to show you two things. If you can see my little pointer, you've got CPU frames currently at 14, 15, 16 milliseconds. And if you scroll down, look at this. Max General, lower logic, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8, 9 milliseconds sometimes. Travesty. If that was reduced down to less than 1 millisecond, which is kind of where we want it to be, this CPU frame count will be awesome. 60 FPS all day long. And on analysis, all of that is down to one problem: the cost of raycasting. And there's a lot of characters in this level, and they're all raycasting. Can you see any characters? You can maybe see one, and yet it's sucking up all of those milliseconds. So that's one of the performance optimizations that's on our radar. On Discord, I've asked if anyone already knows about an open source project that speeds up raycasting to practically zero. We've already followed all the standard practices for optimizing raycasting, but it's not enough. We want it even faster than that. So if you are in Discord and you do know of a really fast raycasting library, please post a link, we'll go check it out. Failing that, we already have a plan to write our own raycasting system that will produce mostly zero cost raycasting. It's like a pre-bake for light maps, but it's a pre-bake for open concave spaces. And any 2 points within a concave space that hasn't got any obstructions in it, you don't even need to do a raycast. You can literally just say, if you're both in the same blob, then you can see each other and you instantly pass that ray condition check. So that's the first of the optimizations. And if you look at the GPU, 17, not good. We want that to be about 1450. And if you scroll down, shadow rendering, 5.8, 5.9, 6 milliseconds. Can you see that many shadows on the screen right now? There is a lot of shadow calculations going on, but we don't really need them right now. They're all like behind that rock and behind the other rock, or maybe far away, but we don't need them. So again, just as we want to reduce the number of GPU frames that we eat up, we want to reduce the GPU side as well. So CPU we've sorted with better raycasting. GPU we hope to solve with efficient shadow rendering, so it's sort of like a shadow on demand sort of system. And as you can imagine, this is just a typical level, a demo level from the hub. If we just did those 2 optimizations, this would lock in at your maximum monitor refresh rate, because these MS numbers would drop right down. There's a lot more, but optimization is all about hitting the low-hanging fruit. Do an analysis and know for a fact what's the slowest part of your engine and target that for optimization, rather than just guess at what might make it faster. We're using metrics to figure out which areas we'll work on next. And this is one of the easier ones to work on, just improving the raycasting. You could argue just do less raycasts, but we've tried that in the past, and what it ends up with is situations where characters can at some point see through doors or not see you when you're standing in front of them, and so that's obviously not desirable. We want all of the functionality, but then all of the speed as well. So that's something I wanted to highlight, that we're not just looking at bug fixes, we're also looking at performance improvements so that the games you make stand the test when they're out there floating around on Steam. And the next thing I'm going to show you, it's part of some of the fixes that we've been doing. I think this is the right project. Quite a lot of fixes means quite a lot of levels being made to test all the different things. And this was the one that involved quite a lot of toing and froing, but I think was worth it in the end, which is the nav mesh. And nav mesh blockers, mostly used by doors. And the problem is, if you had quite a large door, it would create a massive blocker and characters would get frozen. I'll show you what I mean by that, because now we've got the ability to visualize the blockers. Go to AI management, show navigation, debug visuals. Now you've not seen this before. Well, if you're using the EXP build, you've seen this before, but anyone who's using the public build hasn't. So this is a slider door. And as you can see, there's this lot of grey rectangle. That rectangle is what's called a blocker, which means a character cannot traverse this yellowish nav mesh and through your blocker. It just won't be able to navigate through there. As you can see in the message, this door must be operated from somewhere else. It's set to switched. There's a new sliding door operation type called switched. So I've created a little logic link onto this pad. So I'll just stand there. Then that makes the door open. As you can see, the blocker's no longer there, which means if there was an enemy running this way, it wouldn't stop at the door because now it can run straight through. As you can see here, another blocker. If I press E to open the door, watch the blocker. It will disappear. And if that character could see me, it'd be running at me right now. We can close the door. When the door is closed, it re-establishes the blocker and the character can no longer run through the door. Now if I open it, come on, run, run, run. There you go. So it's navigated towards me, but I can close the door and he'll no longer be able to project a path on the nav mesh through a blocker. The blocker prevents the character from doing that. And so being able to visualize it, and also you notice the blocker's contour to the size and shape of the door. That's a big part as well. Even if the door is rotated, you just saw this door is at 45 degrees and the blocker can rotate as well. It's super, super useful, if not critical, to doing a proper nav mesh system with opening and closing things. We're using doors as an example, but you can actually apply a blocker via a script to any object you want. And the last thing I want to talk about before we hand it over to Q&A, I am conscious that I said it's mostly about Q&A and we're already 22 minutes in. I'm pretty sure we'll be finished before the half-hour mark. Is particles have been fixed. For the longest times, the particles mostly worked, but there was a couple of particle shapes that didn't quite work, and you couldn't really scale and rotate every kind of particle. The particle editor tool, which is actually available here, so you can make your own particles, it's quite a sophisticated system producing many different kinds of particle effects, lots more than GameGuru Max is currently supporting, but all the basic ones are in, and some of the latter specialized particles didn't quite work. One example, as you can see, this flat line, you thought it was like a stream out of Ghostbusters positron pack, I think it's called. It was never supposed to be a line. It was actually a circle, as you can see here. So now it actually works. It's a proper circle. I just increase the animation opacity so you can see it a bit better. And as you've already seen, you can rotate them, and you can also grab another one if you wanted to, just to double it up. Of course, you can go back to the particle editor and create your own particle, which is stronger with more particles in it. I just wanted to sort of give you this idea. We run that, and now you've got a proper shape and proper rotation of that particular particle effect. And that does circles, spheres, cubes, rectangles, streams. And I think, have you noticed the Switch Escape demo level? I actually relied on the bug when it was a stream, but now when you run the level, it's a circle. It's still okay. It's just, it's a typical example of how you made your level depending on a bug staying in the engine. And when the bug was fixed, your level changes. So something to be aware of. So those are things that I wanted to pull out of the last 30 days of bug fixes and feature additions. And I hope you enjoy what you've seen so far. And if you want me to go into any more details on those, just let me know. And you'll let me know in the next part of our broadcast, which of course is the Q&A. Okay, so I'm going to do the usual finding the live chat window, linking it up to the thing that I wish it was automated, and I think we're getting faster at it, aren't we? Yes, we are getting faster at it. Let me just make sure our entire window's full up so we get a little bit more real estate for our text, and that's great. Okay. So I'm going to start at the top, and if there's any questions, with a question mark at the end, I'll spot them right away. But I'm not going to be so fastidious. If it sounds like a question in the sentence, then I will absolutely answer it. So, lol, blurry-eyed, coffee is good. I have upgraded my coffee drinking habits to start with beans. So the beans get crushed into a powder, which then gets espressoed into a cup. And no milk, no nothing, just the pure taste of the coffee. I drink quite a lot of caffeine in the day these days, but I digress. Let's look for some questions. Okay, this poly is free, included in new update. No, the low poly stuff that you saw is a set of 6 DLCs that's currently available for sale on Steam. And is also available through a Fanatical bundle. So if you are interested in low poly games or game making, go check out that bundle discount first and see if you're interested. Maybe down the road we'll seed the core product with some low poly choices. Maybe like some samples from the DLC just to sort of whet your appetite. And if you like the look of it and it runs great on your system or whatever, then maybe you'll go off and check out the DLC. Let me know if you would like to see some free samples of low poly stuff in the next update of the core product. I think that might be a pretty good idea. Question marks. Who's got the question marks? Darth Pickles 666 has a question mark. Okay, I'm going to be that guy. When are you releasing the weapons guide that you promised with the October update? The weapons guide's been updated 3 times since the October update. It might be that it was not in the core product but in the workshop item, or it could be not in the workshop item, was supposed to be in the core and that file wasn't updated. But yes, I already know that the weapons guide has been updated, and if you don't have it, then you really need to have it. So I think after this live broadcast, drop me an email at lee@thegamecreators.com and I'll double check. It probably is there, but it isn't. I'll make sure it's there for the update going out today. And if it is there, it may be that you need to do something like Steam verify files. So you grab the very latest version of that file, and then you can check out the weapons guide. And once you've got the latest version of the weapons guide and you read through it and you feel that it needs more fleshing out, etc., be specific on what you want covered, and we'll add that to the weapons guide as well. Okay, can't get that guy, looks like a good boy. The weapons DLC when? Weapons DLC when? In reference to what I've just demonstrated, the low poly night weapons is already out. It's a part of the aforementioned low poly DLC. If you're talking about some other ethereal weapons DLC, as far as I'm concerned, there's none planned. I'm not aware of any artists working on a dedicated weapons DLC pack. There is a weapons DLC already available. I think it's the Wasteland weapons DLC. So you can check that out. But for those who are just joining us into the GameGuru Max universe, if you buy GameGuru Max on its own, no DLCs, it already comes with lots of weapons. So you just go into the Max Collection weapons folder, you'll find lots of lovely weapons there. If you are interested in some artist creating a weapons DLC of a particular theme, go onto the Discord channel and make your feelings known there. I'm sure there will be an artist who picks up on that, and if they get a lot of backing, a lot of people have interest in it, then I'm sure that artist will create some weapons. It's getting easier and easier to create functional weapons in GameGuru Max these days. Okay, another question. Oh, thanks, David Hawkins. You probably answered that question great. Probably quicker than I did too. Here's another question. Hello, when will there be multiplayer? LAN server are dedicated to make a cooperative game. It's kind of a running joke or a running theme in our live broadcast that each broadcast always somebody asks about multiplayer. I'm assuming that people who ask about multiplayer are like joining for the first time, don't like the answer, and then never join again. But let me answer it again. There's no plans to do multiplayer until we've finished a lot of other things that we want to do. There are no plans to do LAN server, and there's no plans to do dedicated. There's no plans to do cooperative gaming in GameGuru Max. I'm being absolutely categorical though, so I'm not creating any false expectations for GameGuru Max. We have our hands full just doing single player, RPG, puzzle, eventually doing third person and vehicles. Multiplayer is a long way off, and it's a big job to do as well. So if you want multiplayer right now, I'm afraid you're going to have to find another tool that does multiplayer. It's as simple as that, because you'll be waiting a very long time in the GameGuru Max community if you want multiplayer right now. Another question, when can we add custom weapons to our game? The previous question about the weapons guide actually tells you how to do that. If you're a bit formidable about dealing with 3D models, and you can work your way around Windows Explorer in a text file and follow some basic instructions, you can actually get a weapon, your own custom weapon, running in GameGuru Max right now. So that's what it's really about. If the weapons guide isn't giving you enough information, or you want more, that's what we need to know, so we can flesh out that guide. So then you don't need us, you can just go through the document, create your weapons, and away you go. But you can do it right now. And in fact, the weapons DLC I just mentioned, that was actually done by an artist just following our basic advice, and they created their custom weapons, and they were so good, we made it a DLC. Okay, next question is from Daniel Williams. Lee, what do you think of Preben's awesome terrain editor? Where did you think the low poly terrain came from? I don't know. I think Preben's reading minds these days. I'm pretty sure Preben didn't know about our backroom plans to do 6 low poly DLCs, and towards the end it was like, wait a minute, we have low poly assets but this high resolution procedural terrain system, and then Preben added low poly terrain generation in his Max Easy Terrain tool. For anyone who doesn't know, Preben has a Patreon site, and if you join as a Patreon member, you get access to what he's working on. And what he's working on right now are 2 things. One is a performance optimizer, which is really good. It's all about squashing media down into the smallest possible size it can be, which means it loads faster and it runs faster on your computer. And the other one is taking our idea of the procedural train system and going nuts with it and creating all kinds of add-ons. All off his own back, not affiliated with TGC, but we highly encourage that kind of effort. In fact, TGC is a Patreon subscriber at the highest level for Preben, to encourage him in his work. And this terrain, if I zoom right out, this is actually a product of that. You generate a procedural terrain, change around some textures, then set it to low poly and export it, and it comes in as an object, and you drop it down, and voila, you actually have polygon terrain, and it's really awesome. And it does all kinds of things like roads, paths, masks. Something we want to do in Max for ages is this mask, so you can actually create like an island with like sort of areas which are high mountain ranges and then low land areas. And well, you've got to check it out for yourself. Just go on to, how would you do this? I think you just go on to YouTube. No, in fact, go on to Discord and just ask someone and you'll be sent a link. And maybe someone could post a link in the live chat right now. It is really good. You should totally check it out. Okay, another question. This is from E-Turpin. Is it E-Turpin? Yes. What are CPU frames and CPU frames, please? CPU, Central Processing Unit. GPU, Graphics Processing Unit. Think of CPU as the thing that runs all of the logic and the maths and the loops of the logic. Think of GPU as the thing that renders everything to the screen as high resolution as possible and as fast as possible. And they run in parallel. So you can have 16 milliseconds per frame running on the CPU and 60 milliseconds per frame running on the GPU. And providing they run on the same time, side by side, your total cost per frame is 16 milliseconds. And what do we mean by all that? You need 15 to 16 milliseconds per frame, and then you've got 60 frames per second to get 60 FPS, which is a pretty decent FPS if you want nice, smooth gameplay. If your 60 millisecond is now 20 or 30 milliseconds per frame, and you multiply that by 60, you end up with, in 1 second, you don't get 60 frames, you get like 30 frames or 20 frames, which makes your game feel chuggy and sluggish and slow, and nobody wants that. So when I talk about performance and optimization, and the ultimate goal is that if you're running any of the demos in GameGuru Max, and you're one of the 94% of Steam users with a certain PC system setup, you should expect 60 FPS across the board, across all those demos. And that's our goal. Every demo running at 60 FPS speed or better on 94% of Steam users' PCs out there. Yes, it's ambitious. And yes, we're right at the edge of raggedy 8-year-old PCs at that point. But it's not impossible, and it's a worthy goal. Even if we don't quite hit that goal and we get near it, it still means we have a very optimized and highly performant game engine at the end of the day. So that's basically the goal. And going back to your question, that's generally what I mean when I refer to CPU and GPU frames. You have to render 60 separate frames every second to get a nice smooth gameplay experience. All right, bigger question. It looks like, is it a question from Monkey Frog Studio? It could be. Let me just scroll down a bit, or a lot. Right, it is a question. What about proper culling of unseen objects in a level? Currently the PC can face a wall and there will still be a hit at the FPS if there are many objects on the other side. There is culling, it's just not very good culling. And there's many scenarios where an object will still be rendered behind an object even though you can't see it. So as you say, a wall that you're standing in front of, but if you're too close to the wall, the occlusion system slightly falls down and still renders what's behind it. And that's not even the best way of doing it. There's a lot of different techniques to purse up a level. If you go all the way back to the likes of Duke Nukem and Doom, they'll absolutely sliced up those levels with a technique called BSP, I think it was called. And it only ever rendered the polygons that you could actually see through the portals of the level. These days, with more sophisticated levels, and as you can look at GameGuru Max levels, you can basically create anything you want. We couldn't be that strict with how we sliced up the level. But we still want to look into occlusion. Not just object occlusion, which of course is super cool if you can reduce the draw count, but also level of detail, so you're using less polygons for objects further away, and also less textures on objects that are further away. Those three things, all related to objects rendered to the screen, will again give us a massive boost. Because right now, yes, we can do improvements of shadows and improvements of raycasting, but if your level has 12 million polygons, it's still rendering 12 million polygons, and that's a bit of a crime if when you're standing on the floor looking north, you're only ever going to see like 2 million of them or less. So yeah, that's another big optimization area. But unlike the ones that we're focusing on, that actually requires whole new techniques to be added to the engine in order to deliver those sorts of benefits. A lot of work and a lot of people twiddling their thumbs waiting for those optimizations. So again, it's all about low-hanging fruit. Improving the raycasting is relatively quick and gives you a massive boost. Shadow rendering could be a relatively quick fix, and again, a massive boost. The object stuff I talked about, those are whole subsystems that need writing or researching. But it's definitely on the books, don't worry, it's coming. Here's a question from Extreme Strategy. When will the HUD editor be flushed out? Flushed out? Currently there is an option in the HUD to go to another level, but is there no level selector for you to choose? Yeah, there's still work to be done on the storyboard and screen editor areas. It was one of the last things to go into GameGuru Max, and I think it's sort of one of the areas that could do with a lot more work on it. But let's separate those two. There's bugs and then there's features. We're focusing on the bugs first. In fact, a couple of months ago we said, what are your top 3 priorities? Bug fixing, and bug fixing. Now, a lot of them, yes, you can classify as bugs. So if you actually look at, I think one of the options when you click a button, it lets you choose whether it exits the game or goes to the level or wins the game or loses the game. And then it says go to HUD screen 1, HUD screen 2 and screen 3. And that's it, it stops. What about HUD screen 4 and 5 and 6? That's not a missing feature, that's a bug. I think that one's already reported. But if you find anything else of that ilk, please do post it in the issues board. We will treat it as a bug and we will fix it. But sometimes those sorts of things do stray into feature request, and we're very brutal about making sure we fix all the bugs first before we start looking at adding features or functionality. Okay, don't miss the question mark. Very important. I need to see question marks, otherwise I may skip your question. Another question from Extreme Strategy. Will having 2 weapons equipped at once be a thing for dual wielding, a knife and a spear, or 2 different blah, 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 blah. I call that a feature request. It's a good idea, and the new weapon system has been cajoled to allow this dual wielding to happen a little easier. But it still requires a lot of coding to add that stuff. Right now, it's 1 weapon. Unless some enterprising artist creates, and this just might be a suggestion for someone out there, it's 1 weapon, but both hands are being used. Like nunchucks, that's how you pronounce it, or one of them sticks with the things on the end. Or the 2 daggers, so you could actually have both weapons held out at the same time, and then you can supply some custom animations to do different things with them. That is also supported in the new weapon system, but having completely different weapons from different artists on the screen at the same time, that's going to be trickier. Not ruling it out, but it's definitely in the feature request column. But it is a good idea. Another question mark, this is from Navid. As far as I understand, we still have lower in GameGuru Max, right? Tell us about scripting, how Vere is scripting in GameGuru Max. You're absolutely right. The basis of all of the logic inside GameGuru Max game level is Lua. It's the Lua scripting language. Ages ago, years ago, someone wrote an amazing guide on how to get started with Lua scripting. It's not GameGuru Max, it's GameGuru Classic. It's on the Steam page, just go onto the Steam GameGuru Classic and type out Lua scripting, and it will take you to this guide. Read that. That's a great introduction to the whole subject. Once you've read that, and then you move to GameGuru Max, you'll be able to break out a Lua file, type a couple of lines of code, add it to an object, and boom, you've now created your own scripted logic inside your levels. So it definitely does use Lua in GameGuru Max. Monkey Frog Studio is not asking a question, but answering one. Thank you very much. I'll find another question. Here's one right underneath from Vince. Is there a easy way to get the center mass of a third-party asset in the importer? I have a character that is on its side when I play a level. The character runs on his side. When I click the character, it goes upright. Sounds like, yeah, some model importing woes. Just for clarity, centre of mass is mostly referred to in the realm of physics. So, you know, if you had a high centre of mass on an object and you had physics on, it would topple over because its centre of mass is too high. If you actually have a model or a character that's literally on its side, that's not so much centre of mass as it is the what we call the 0, 0, 0 point. And you always want the 0, 0, 0 of your mesh, of what you're importing, at the feet, at the bottom of your object. That's where you want to place it. Don't worry about the centre of mass. The physics does that for you. It figures out where the mesh is and the bones, and it plops the centre of mass right in the middle. And just for anyone who's interested in the advanced conversation, there is no option right now to change that centre of mass in the model importer. But do let me know if that is of interest. Mostly everyone's been quite happy with just the natural physics calculation and an automatic centre of mass. Okay, here's a question from Tyrone. Will there ever be a linear storyline option? I don't know what that is. Were quests unlock once certain quests are an such as an objective once done display a cutscene, then another objective. Yeah, like an animation editor where you can have like from left to right a timeline, and you can trigger A, B, C, D, da 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 da. That's you know, that could be something that's coming. We haven't got any plans, just to say right up front. That's a feature. We haven't designed anything in that respect, but it's clear that something like that will be needed for the more sophisticated sort of narrative-based games. I'm not doing anything on it for one reason. There's something on the horizon, and you may have gleaned some information on Discord, called GameGuru. And it flies very close. The thing you've just talked about flies very close to the features of GameGuru, and if GameGuru does everything that you've just said, there's no point us reinventing the wheel in the short term. May as well just grab that. So keep an eye out. It's called GameGuru. It's probably going to make its way into the universe in the not too distant future, and that does allow you to do things like cutscenes and timelines and triggering things one after the other, which is kind of one of the core precepts of GameGuru, in addition to lots of other cool features as well. Okay, we're looking for another question, dropping past Netcrim. Thank you. Yep, Netcrim confirms it is possible. I mean, what Netcrim's saying is you can write a Lua script to do that. No problem. But yeah, Netcrim and I, we love writing scripts. Not everybody loves writing scripts. Vince asks, is there a way to get the chainsaw and the enhanced pack from Classic to Max? That's a good question, and the answer applies to a lot of different scenarios. You may have a lot of stuff in Classic and just assume it will work in Max. Not so. We changed GameGuru Max Engine so much, quite a lot of stuff that runs in Classic just doesn't know how to work in Max because it's completely different. Some stuff works, the simple stuff like static meshes and textures, they move across quite well, but scripts won't. The old character creator creations, they won't come across. And we've added a lot of commands to Max, and we've changed commands in Max. So even commands that you think, oh, I know what that command does because I used it in Classic, may not work the same in Max. And it's the same goes for weapons. If you think a weapon is just a 3D model that floats around in front of the camera, well, you probably need to think about it a bit more. Weapons are rigged, they're animated, they affect the game, they make sound effects, they create decal effects. They are very intricate and fully functional things. And so you can imagine something like that with so many moving parts that works in Classic. Doesn't really work just moving it to Max. In fact, all the weapons that you see now in Max had to be slightly or heavily modified just so they worked in GameGuru Max, which is why we decided to create the new weapon system, which rather than try and port across all of the old 7 years of Classic history, we thought, well, what if you just had a model and you wanted to get it functional in Max, and looked at it from that perspective. And if you look at the Max Colt weapon, in fact, instead of me rambling on, I actually get to demonstrate something, which is the whole purpose of this live broadcast. I can show you stuff. I go to weapons, scroll. Is it Colt pistol? Yes, it is. Colt pistol. So that. There you go. Let's just go down to here a bit. There you go. Colt pistol. That is actually a static gun model. It's a static gun model. You follow the weapons guide, and if I'm going to get attacked, aren't I? I don't mind. Let's just run it so you can see it. If I can remember where I placed it down now. Come on, come on, come on. Right, where's that gun I just placed down? Getting sliced up. Yes, good. You can see the shadow of the... Stop attacking me! Right. Go away. Now this is just a static Colt pistol, but look, it's got a hand, it's animating, it shoots, it's got smoke coming out of it, it's got bullets coming out of it as well. All of the other stuff, minus that static textured model, is provided with the new weapon system. So all you really need to do is find yourself a nice static weapon, do some jiggery pokery with the weapons guide, and boom, you've created your own weapon. And voila. And that's how we were going to do it moving forward with GameGuru Max. Dragging weapons from 7 years ago and trying to get them working in Max, it's kind of the wrong way around. And in many ways, some of the older weapons from 7 years ago, you may not even want in GameGuru Max. You want the highest quality weapons, and hopefully that's what we've provided with the new weapon system and the weapons guide. Okay, let's look for another question. Dropping below to this big one from Era. Hey there, some questions I have. First, when player attack knife and melee attack, impact is like bullet. Will there be any improvement? Second, have you guys planned for optimizing game? In the latest update, we fixed that. So in the past, if you had a knife and you hit a wall, you'd have a bullet hole, which is stupid. Now you don't have bullet holes when you attack with a melee weapon. It's just the material impact. That's all you see. You don't actually see bullet holes. So we actually fixed that relatively recently. So go check out the update that goes out later today, and you should be quite happy. As to your second question, have you guys planned for optimized game? See the previous 20 minutes of me talking about CPUs, GPUs, raycasting, shadow rendering, and object optimization. So yes, we do have the plans. Extreme strategy. Will you keep the theme going of people asking already answered question, when's third person coming? A lot sooner than multiplayer. Put it that way. In fact, people have already people in the know are already working on third person. They're not waiting for TGC, they're just creating their own third person system. Think about it. You've got all your objects, you've got hundreds and hundreds of lure commands, you've got full control of large parts of the game engine. It's not that difficult to create a third person set of scripts. And I'll leave it at that. Go check it out, ask questions on Discord, and see what's going on in the work in progress area. But yes, eventually, because so many people have asked for third person, and it isn't that hard to do, we just have to make sure we do it correctly and right, and in the right order. And if you remember Classic, you used to have like a start marker. We should get the start marker guy, move him over here. All you had to do if you do third person is pick a character, hover over a start marker, and as soon as you click it, boom, you're instantly third person. So now when I press test game, you're running around as the skeleton, and if the skeleton had a weapon or any other attributes, then you'd see those as well. And really, from an end user's perspective, that's kind of all you want. For first person, third person in shooter, RPG, and the puzzle styles. So yeah, it's definitely on the boards for inclusion into GameGuru Max, but as I said, priority 1, bug fixing. Priority 2 and 3, bug fixing. Once all those are done and the time is right, and I'm just going to telegraph here, I think the project system is going to come ahead of third person, because project system will affect everyone, whereas third person only affects people who want to create third person games. But yeah, I don't think you'd have to wait too long for third person, but we want to do it right, and we want to do it in the right order. Hopefully that is an answer with a smile at the end of it. Okay, we've got quite a lot of questions. I'm looking at the clock, 52 minutes in. We have 7 minutes left before I say goodbye. Let's see if I can blast through these questions relatively quickly. Tyrone's talking to Netcrim, so I can skip that. Era asks, will there be more setting options for graphic? Instead of lower, minimum, high, become more detailed? Not until we've fixed all the bugs, but you're absolutely right. Low, medium and high, so old. So yesterday's news. What you want is a graphic screen where you can set shadows to low, medium, high. Environment probes, low, medium, high. All the different parts of your rendering scene, low, medium, high. And then set a configuration for your players for all the things that you've chosen. Because everyone's levels are going to be very different. So yes, that's definitely planned. But after we've got the GameGuru Max bug-free, stable and fast. Okay, Darth Pickle 666, the guide I was talking to you about mentioned was going to be a case of adding a weapon, a static object, and then doing it this way. Is this guide that you've added? It's in the weapons guide. If it's not in the weapons guide, it may not be updated or available. Email me if it absolutely isn't there. It needs to be in there because it's not actually that difficult. Follow a couple of steps, boom, you've created your own weapon. It's pretty cool. I've emailed you. Thank you very much. I'll answer that after this broadcast. Thank you very much for your concern and passion for wanting weapons and more weapons. Netcream's talking to Nairon in response. Next question from Johnson Steve. Will you add that you can also play the games on mobile? There are no plans for GameGuru Max to produce games other than on Windows 10 Plus. No plans for it to run on Mac, Linux, iOS, Android, any consoles or anything earlier than Windows 10. And no immediate plans to do DirectX 12, Vulkan or any other version of a graphics API. We want to do all the aforementioned things that was already mentioned before we start looking at shiny new things like that. And we'll probably never really get round to platforms and consoles and all the rest of it. We'd need a very, very much larger team, and we don't have that size of team. So it's impracticable, if that's a word. Okay, questions. We're going to scroll down to no question mark there. So I guess Tyrone is just talking to Netcrim, and Netcrim is talking to... thank you for your answers. Netcrim doesn't have a question. Here we go, it's from Era. Is there another one? Will there be an update for blood effects when you damage NPCs? You already get blood effects when you hit an NPC. That's already in there, so that's good. Here's a question from Retro6502. Is that 6502 the chip from the old 8-bit days? Do you have some examples of GameGuru Max games that have been published and released that show off some of the best of what can be done with it? It's too early in the history of GameGuru Max for those sorts of examples. I know what you mean. It'd be great to go on Steam and see some really good examples of finished GameGuru Max games. We're just too early in the life cycle for this game maker. The closest you'll get, I've just come out of this custom project, is to look at demo games. So there's 15 here that you can play each one. That'll give you a pretty good pat on what we're able to do right now. And of course, as we add more features, these demos will increase with different kinds of games to play, etc. And of course, ultimately, one or two of you are going to break out of this nonsense and actually finish a game in GameGuru Max and put it on Steam. And I think we should create a place somewhere in the hub where you can actually browse finished and published GameGuru Max games. I think that would be a really cool tab in the hub. But as of right now, none or very, very few games are out there in Steam or distributed land written in GameGuru Max. 57 minutes in, 2 minutes left. Who's got a question for old Lee? This is from Daniel Williams. Is there an advantage to having an RTX graphics card with GameGuru Max? Yes. The RTX graphics card, by its very nature, is pretty hungry, which means it has a very fast GPU in it, which means all your demos will run nice and fast. So if you have the opportunity to get yourself an RTX card, get one. We do have minimum specs and recommended specs, but really it's about get the system that you can afford. GPU is probably more important than CPU, so get the best one you can afford. Here's a question from Bob of Sorry Games. Any progress with depth of field or DOF? Not at the moment. That kind of falls into the camp of feature request, but it's one of those feature requests which probably are literally one line of code and a bit of UI, and then boom, you got it. But as I said, priorities is bug fixing until we get to 0. Yes, once we get to 0, we'll still have more bugs being reported, but at that point, I'm going to give everyone permission to start thinking seriously about feature requests. I think DOF would be one of the first ones, given how easy it might be to add. So one more question, because we're literally down to the last minute, and that comes by Vince. Vince, congratulations, you get the last question of the hour. How can I set a chair legs to 000 in Max that you mentioned? You wouldn't set it in Max. You would use your 3D modeling package of choice, and you would move all the meshes around so that when you export it, the coordinate 000 is actually at the bottom and center bottom of your mesh. So you wouldn't do it in GameGuru Max, you would do it in, say, Blender or 3D Max or Maya or Softimage or whatever else is out there, and that's where you do it. And then you'd export it. You'd use the model importer to import that what you've exported. I suggest FBX or Open or GLTF. And when it imports into the model importer, what you're looking for is the model sitting on that floor. There's an artificial floor in the model importer, and there's a little outline of a character also standing on that floor. Make sure that the bottom of your mesh is the same as where that character is standing, and then you know that you're at 000 center. And then it's a lot easier after that to do characters, and walls and doors and other things that you need to place into a GameGuru Max level. So that's it for this month. I hope you enjoyed our live broadcast, and thank you very much for all your questions. I'm looking forward at the end of December to answer whether we are going to add multiplayer, third person, into the mix. And I haven't looked at my calendar. Yes, I'm off for Christmas, but I think it would be a real pity if I couldn't make it back for the last Wednesday of December to give you another hour of show and tell of what's been fixed. Probably all the last of the bugs fixed in 30 days time from now. That would be a really great presentation. And exactly what day and what time we got to the 0 bug count before it starts filling up again. And of course, join us next month as well if you've got any more burning questions. And I apologise for those questions I didn't get to this time round. The rule of thumb is if you do have a burning question, to ask it in the first 10 minutes of the live broadcast, and you'll definitely get an answer, because they are answered in chronological order. So I think that the last Wednesday of December is going to be after Christmas. I don't know for a fact. Let me check my calendar. Can you see my screen? The last Wednesday falls on the 27th. It falls on the 27th. So in that case, I will wish you all a very Merry Christmas, or whatever holiday you choose to enjoy on the 25th when everyone's chilling. And I will be joining you shortly after Christmas to give you a little sneak peek into the last update of 2023 for GameGuru Max, and probably telegraphing and highlighting some of our plans for early 2024. So thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it, and I wish you bon voyage if you are travelling over the Christmas season, and I'll speak to you again next month. So until then, I shall bid you adieu.